What is good, everybody? Welcome to TGI Football here on the SB Nation NFL show. A reminder before we take any more steps forward that this show is brought to you by our friends at DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That is code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. As noted, this is TGI Football on the SB Nation NFL show, where we have a variety of shows that you can listen to or watch throughout the week. If listening is more your thing, you can do so wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to the SB Nation NFL show, leave a rating and write a review. If you want to watch, if you want to make us, I don't know if that's two-dimensional. Either way, you can do so on the SB Nation NFL YouTube channel. I say us. My name is RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys. Brandon Lee Gatton from Bleeding Green Nation is absent, but Stephen Serda from Arrowhead Pride. You're doing the work of two human beings today, Stephen. So how does that make you feel?
It's fine. I'm good. I got a lot of sleep last night, so I'm locked in and ready to roll for Week 8's action across the league.
What is the last non-football thing you watched before we begin? Because we have a lot of football to talk about, as you mentioned.
What did I watched a movie last night.
What a shocker. Stephen Serda watched a movie.
Before I went to bed. What did I watch last night? Oh, it was Cabin in the Woods. I don't know.
Oh, that's the Joss Whedon movie?
Yeah. So I love that movie, and it's like Halloween time, so I feel like it's a perfect like Halloween type of movie.
I don't think this will be a shock. I'm not a scary movie person. I don't enjoy them. Like hand up, I'm a coward, like whatever. I'm totally fine with this. I don't mind a thriller every now and then. Like the first couple Saws were a little like, it's like when you're in high school and you go with everybody and everybody's screaming in the movie theater. Like I'm okay with that vibe. Again, if it's like around Halloween, it's a lot of fun. This was not your prototypical, I guess it kind of was, but it was a really cool, scary movie. So I really liked it. Along these lines, I was very, very late to watching the movie Seven. I have a feeling that that's like one of your favorite films of all time.
It's very good. It's funny that you mentioned that because David Fincher's latest movie, The Killer, actually comes out this weekend on a limited release. I have to drive. I'm going to try to go see it on Saturday. I have to drive 30 minutes to go see it because it's a limited release Netflix movie, and the only place they're showing in Kansas City is really far away.
I don't think anyone's going to feel bad for you driving 30 minutes. It's not that far. So
I mean, it's kind of hard to go see a movie. Like,
no, it's not. Like you throw on TGI Football, you listen to a podcast, half of it there, half of it on the way back. I mean,
there's also a movie theater like right across the street from where I live. So I usually walk to the movie theater. So it seems really far for me to have to drive 30 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think anybody feels bad for you. It is our final show before Halloween. So yeah, everybody watch Cabin in the Woods this weekend, I think is the play. Rachel told us, by the way, what her favorite Halloween movie was. I forget exactly what it was. Like I said, I don't really like Halloween movies. Like it just, I can't really think of, but along those lines, our final tangent before we get into the football, is there a Thanksgiving movie? Because I can only think of one. Can you think of like a Thanksgiving movie where, the plot kind of revolves around that?
I don't know. I don't have anything off the top of my head.
I mean, obviously there's a million Christmas movies, but the only one I could think of is Scent of a Woman. And it's really only because like it happens around Thanksgiving and one of the scenes is at Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, I'll have to think of it. I feel like there's got to be something that will pop in my mind as the show goes on.
Well, you mentioned our show. We are going to review Thursday Night Football. The Buffalo Bills got the 24-18 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We will preview all of the Sunday games to come. We will also offer our Pick 3 segment, which is brought to you by DraftKings as well. Stephen, did you know that there are no teams on bye this week?
Yeah, I don't really understand what's going on with that. Because especially kind of this late into the season, like for this show specifically, where we go through every single game, you kind of get a little reprieve once the bye weeks start. And this isn't the way that it normally is. I don't understand why there's no teams on bye this week. It doesn't make any sense. I guess this is like a 17 game schedule thing. Maybe I don't really know. It's stupid. I don't know why the NFL decided to do this.
Yeah, it's strange that you would have 4 or 5 weeks in a row where everybody had a bye, or 3 weeks. So there have been buys for 3 weeks in a row. Last week was bye-mageddon in fantasy football circles. But so there have been buys happening all over the place for the last 3 weeks. There will be buys happening all over the place for the next 3 weeks as well. And then we reach the week of Thanksgiving, and there are no buys once again. And then there are still buys after. So why are there these like, quarter polls or whatever between the buys? I have no idea. But Thursday Night Football offers a mini buy, which the Buffalo Bills and Tampa Bay Buccaneers are now on. We mentioned it, Stephen. The Bills surviving 24-18, the final score. They did not cover the Bills. They were coming off of that rough loss on Sunday, the New England Patriots. This was, I guess, maybe what the doctor ordered for Bills fans, like get back at it quick, get a nice win. I don't know that it was a nice win. I mean, you're not going to apologize or feel bad for it, but like this, there were still the same kind of offensive sputtering issues for Buffalo, even in the win.
Yeah, I do think it was a nice win, though, in the fact that their offense kind of showed some versatility, I think, for the first time in a while, where it's like we've talked about it a little bit on this show, where Buffalo is way too Josh Allen, just go make plays at times, just feed Stephon Diggs, get Diggs involved because they don't have a lot of other playmakers that you want to rely on a weekly basis. And like Gabriel Davis has actually had a pretty strong year so far this season. And I know Dawson Knox gets injured. Dalton Kincaid steps in, has a monster game last night. And I felt like for the first time in a while, the Bills were actually trying to take a different approach where it's not just feed Diggs, where it was actually like, let's funnel to some of these other guys that they're not keying in on as much as Stephon Diggs. And it worked out, but then they still did the typical Bills thing, which it's like, they're up by multiple scores late in the game, and it's like they could put this thing away, and then they don't, and the Bucs get a chance, this score late in the fourth quarter, and have an opportunity there at the end. Even though that was, I don't understand how nobody got a hand on that ball on that Hail Mary. By the way, like it looks like a punt, like it just hit the end zone.
It is a rare thing. I would challenge anyone to find a Hail Mary, to your point, that just is completely not touched before it hits the ground. Like there's, and the camera angle always kind of fools you. It makes you think it's possible. It was a very, very strange play in that sense. I guess I'm with you. I mean, it was a more impressive win than usual for Buffalo, but that's really still not saying, like, my needle isn't moved. You know what I mean? Like I remain uninspired by the Bills. Like, okay, cool. Like you went in and played somewhat nicely. You had some pass catchers who were a bigger factor that weren't Stephon Diggs. You mentioned Gabe Davis. Khalil Shakir actually led the team in receiving and had the 30-yard reception, which kind of inflated things. And that was nice. And obviously Dawson Knox being out is tough, but Dalton Kincaid did step up. But it feels so harder than it has to be for the Bills. Like it feels like they just want to make things difficult. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not willing to bet on this team long term. I mean, you can't even bet on them now. Like I said, they didn't even cover in this game, and they beat a bad Bucs team. Like this is who we expected the Bucs to be. I know they got off to the cute little start, and that was kind of fun. And we still can't write them off in the NFC South because, I mean, it's the NFC South. But like, and Chris Godwin had one of the coolest catches of the year on his touchdown. It was, impressive, but like, man, this Bucs team is just depressing. Like I don't enjoy why they make me like football less.
It's the Bucs definitely need to commit to a rebuild here at some point because they're competitive right now, but they're not a team that's going anywhere.
Right.
And I don't think anybody believes that about them. They're competitive because they still have talented players that are left over from those Super Bowl caliber teams. And they're not really going anywhere with Baker Mayfield, which was evident last night when you go up against a talented team in the Buffalo Bills. But I'm still with you on the Bills right now. Like I'm still not sold, but this is a game you absolutely couldn't lose after losing to the Patriots last week. So they took care of business. They still had their issues, but overall, I think it was a big bounce back game for Josh Allen.
The Bills we will see next. That was a weird way to make that sentence. This was also a weird way to speak. The Bills next week play the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that game is in Cincinnati. So obviously it will be an emotional thing, what with them returning to Cincinnati for the first time since the DeMar Hamlin scare last year. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers we will not see again until they host the Texans next week, which isn't, I don't know what the early line is on that game, but I have to imagine that Houston would be favored at least by one. I mean, the Bucs make me sad, dude. Like there's nothing, what is fun about them? Like right now you can have anything on, like, is there a fantasy piece of the Bucs that you want at all?
I mean, I guess it's Mike Evans and that's it. And, he got the touchdown last night, but he didn't have a good game. Chris Godwin's been okay. They're a team that is just kind of hanging out right now. And I don't really understand why they haven't committed to a rebuild just yet. I understand like sometimes it's hard for GMs and coaches to commit to that. And Todd Bowles is like, well, I want to win. I want to be competitive. And it's like, Yeah, but you guys aren't good enough to go anywhere, and you have to take a step back and acknowledge that at some point. So I don't. I feel like they should trade Mike Evans, but it doesn't seem like they're going to.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a few days, Bucks, to kind of have a long, hard look in the mirror. Like they didn't want to pay him. That was the big old thing, obviously, at the beginning of the season. So you might as well. Like if you're going to start the rebuild, do it now. You're the Titans of the NFC at this point. So congratulations to the Bills. Congratulations to our friends at Buffs Rumblings. They've had a tough week, and it feels a little bit better now. It's always nice to get that win on Thursday night. Stephen, that takes us to our Pick 3 segment, which is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook, once again, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That is code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Okay, Stephen, our same game parlay almost happened last week. For the very first time in the history of our Friday show here on the SB Nation NFL show, you and I were very responsible. We were very methodical. Both of our legs hit, and BLG took the under on Najee Harris rushing yards at 51.5. Najee finished with 53 rushing yards. We were so close to finally pulling this off. Now, BLG and I set that same game parlay on the show last week when you weren't here. So maybe we'll have a similar bit of luck. Like maybe it requires one of us to not be here because Brandon is technically not here today. He did give us his information nonetheless. You chose this week's game. So if we fail, you got us here. Just so everyone, yeah, this is on you, Stephen. The Baltimore Ravens are visiting the Arizona Cardinals in the Hollywood Brown Bowl. Like I said, BLG submitted his leg. He has chosen the Baltimore Ravens on the race to 10 points at minus 270, the most lockable level of our parlay. Stephen, what are you going with and why?
So I chose Zay Flowers 60 plus alternate receiving yards at plus 100. Zay Flowers is, I think, getting some acknowledgement, but maybe not getting hyped enough just about how good he's looked as a rookie wide receiver. And we know the Ravens offense really blew up last week against a good Lions team and just like absolutely decimated them. But Zay Flowers has kind of been flying under the radar a little bit because it's not like he's having these monster games, but it's just been consistent. Like he's been over 50 receiving yards in all but one game this season. And I really like the way they're deploying him now. And the Ravens are starting to actually like push the ball downfield a little bit more. That I think that's been the biggest issue with Zay Flowers so far this season is that everything's kind of around the line of scrimmage. Like they're trying to get him in space because he's just this twitchy wide receiver. But he can make some plays downfield, and Lamar is really coming on. They're figuring things out offensively. Their defense is playing lights out. I just feel pretty confident that in this matchup against an Arizona Cardinals secondary that has been torched by wide receivers this season, that Zay Flowers is a pretty safe bet to get at least 60 receiving yards on Sunday.
I think that's fair. I think that's logical. If it weren't for CJ Stroud, I think Zay Flowers would be a lock for offensive rookie of the year. But you're right. Not getting like everybody was rightfully, celebrating last week when Jackson Smith-Njigba had his first touchdown. But it's like, hey, this is kind of happening on a weekly, maybe not the touchdowns, but you know what I mean? Like this level of phenomenon is happening on a weekly basis with Zay Flowers. So everybody give him his. I wonder if our friends at Baltimore Beatdown have made that joke a lot. Like give him his flowers. You know what I mean? But
I'm sure they have.
So Lamar Jackson has really progressed as an NFL quarterback, not just from last year to this year. You and I have long been Lamar fans, unlike the other normal mainstay on this show. And we have seen Lamar develop and reduce his ability to bail out and run, which we obviously know he can do at a high and proficient level. There was the great play last week where he kind of danced around in the pocket, waited, and still threw a touchdown. So I'm leaning on the arm of Lamar Jackson this week instead of the legs. Over 1.5 passing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns for Lamar Jackson. That's all we're asking. One of them can be to Zay Flowers on a 60 yard reception, and then we kind of hit. And if Justin Tucker has already booted a field goal, then we all hit right away. So as BLG likes to say, these all kind of lend toward one another. Plus 105 for Lamar Jackson just to hit 2 passing touchdowns. I feel very confident in this, Stephen. If it were 3, I'd feel a little bit more touch and go because I could see the Ravens kind of getting out to an early lead. This is obviously not too talented Cardinals team, but this feels good. This feels like the week. I mean, I know we've said that for like 65 weeks in a row, but this feels like the week.
I will say Lamar's only got 3 games this season with 2 or more touchdown passes, but this matchup with the Arizona Cardinals is that good. Like that, this is the game where we saw him explode against a much better Detroit Lions team last week, and I feel like they'll just keep it moving against the Arizona Cardinals because that secondary has been torched this season.
Well said. Our total line on our same game parlay is plus 345. So go to DraftKings Sportsbook, use code SBNFL. You can make this bet. Hopefully you win. And if we do, then Stephen, you and I can forever say that it just took getting Brandon off to finally get the good vibes here throughout everything. Okay, so we are going to discuss all of the Week 8 Sunday games. We'll offer a sentence preview on Monday Night Football as well. A reminder on 2 important rules. We will each have a lock of the week. Both you and Brandon hit last week, Stephen. You were both 6-1 this season on locks. I am a measly 3-4. And you and I each have the right to zap one another, which means, don't want to hear what you're saying about this game. You just have to offer one sentence and that's it. Stephen, because I love you and care for you greatly, I'm going to let you have Brandon's zap. But you can use Brandon's zap on me or yourself, but you can only use your zap on me. Sometimes you like to zap yourself with your zap. So you have, 1.5 zaps in that sense. You can do whatever you want, make whatever combination you'd like. That's up to you. We start with the Philadelphia Eagles visiting the Washington Commanders. This is actually Brandon's lock of the week. He hasn't responded in our Slack group, but he locked them when Philly was favored by 6.5. That has grown to 7. So we're going to hold him to that mark. But I don't think he'll really care. The Eagles almost lost to the Commanders a couple of weeks ago, Stephen. This is a tough situation. I know the Eagles had an impressive win last week on Sunday Night Football against the Dolphins, but the Commanders have been really bad, basically ever since Ron Rivera played for overtime.
That was a weird matchup, but I feel like the Eagles have these games against the Commanders every year. It's just NFC East divisional, like just one of those weird things that we see in these divisional matchups. But I think based off of the Eagles' performance last week, and I think it was their best all-around performance of the season, like I just assume that BLG is pretty safe here with his lock this week. I think the Eagles are playing really well. I know Hurts is banged up, but he said this week that it's not affecting him and he's going to be fine. And Sam Howell is just taking more sacks than any other quarterback in the NFL, and it's not even close. So I expect the Eagles defensive line to just totally decimate that offensive line for the Commanders and just give Sam Howell all kinds of problems. I expect another huge game from AJ Brown, and maybe they'll get Devontae Smith going this week. We'll see. But I just think it's an easy Eagles win, especially with how they're playing right now.
I do think the Sam Howell factor is really important, just because he likes to take sacks. The Eagles like to get sacks. Like this just really bodes not well for the Commanders. And I mean, I would maybe be willing to talk myself into them covering based on how tightly they played the Eagles if they hadn't lost in super unimpressive fashion last week to the Giants. Like if you only score 7 points against the Giants, like what leads us to believe you're able to do anything, of substance against a significantly better Eagles team. So clean sweep across the board. We're all taking Philly. I guess we're all laying the points. Steven, the New England Patriots, coming off of that win last week against the Bills that we talked about, they are headed down to Miami, their own house of horrors. I wonder if that joke will be made, by the way, like with Halloween coming up. The Dolphins laying 9.5 points at home, despite coming off of that performance that we just talked about against the Eagles last week on Sunday Night Football.
I don't think anything about the Patriots win from last week is going to carry over to this game. The Dolphins, I know they're banged up right now.
Except for Jalen Ramsey, although he kind of disputed that a little bit. Like he might play, might not. That's kind of a weird factor.
Yeah, Adam Schefter reported that he was expected to be a go this week, and Jalen Ramsey immediately was just like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to play this week. This isn't right. This is bogus. So we'll see if Jalen Ramsey is up this week, and Tyreek Hill was banged up this week, but he returned to practice, said he'd be good to go. So we'll see what happens, but it just feels like a big bounce back game for the Dolphins where they're just going to come out swinging. And the Patriots defense has been really up and down. Like you get games like that against the Bills sometimes, but then they're really injured right now and Belichick can only do so much. I just don't think they're going to be able to do anything with Miami speed. I think the Dolphins easily cover, and I think that they beat the Patriots by multiple scores.
Yeah, I think they do. I think this is a very comfortable win for them. Like maybe it's like over in the early second quarter, something like that. And the chatter all week long, especially leading up to is it Germany game against the Chiefs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Do you know any German, by the way?
I don't know any German.
Ich
We will
liebe.
have people from the Arrowhead Pride team will be in Germany, in Frankfurt for this game, though.
Right on. Ich liebe, I believe, is I love you. So just work that in. You know what I mean? Across Arrowhead Pride next week. I'm like, there's like an extra word there that I'm forgetting,
Why
but
do you know that?
I had a friend who had lived in Germany for some time, and so she had taught me like some basic. I mean, I say some. It was literally that phrase. Like it wasn't like there were like 6 or 7 phrases. But I think there was like another word that like connects them. But people will understand that you drop an itch, Liba. People know what you're saying. But because of that game that's looming, and because of the like. If you, the loyal listener, think that the London games gets a lot of attention, this game's going to get blown up in your face. Like you are going to get Dolphins, Chiefs, and Germany all throughout next week because the NFL wants another market and because they're sending Patrick Mahomes and Mike McDaniel and all these, fun, quirky characters to Germany, et cetera, et cetera. Like you are going to get beat over the head with Chiefs, Dolphins, and Germany next week. And so the Dolphins, Stephen, as you all know, are facing this like reputation of, handling the easy teams and struggling against the top dogs. And the Chiefs are the toppest and doggiest of top dogs. So I could kind of see a little bit of looking ahead in this game, but I think that they win comfortably, and it just sets up that narrative all week long that all they do is beat the bad teams, and can they really take down the Chiefs and blah 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 blah. So yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna go on record, Stephen. I'm going to lock up the Chiefs next week. I'm getting on that right now. I don't even know what the line is, but I'm taking it. I'm locking up the Chiefs next week because I believe in them. Yeah, thank you to me. All right, that's thank you to myself. That's some Quinnen Williams stuff right there. But I'm taking the Dolphins here too. The New York Jets are visiting the New York Giants in MetLife. I saw on Reddit. Did you know that they have their own locker rooms in the building?
The Jets have their own locker room, and
yeah, so it's not like, oh, they got to go to the visitor locker room this week or whatever. And I believe there are 2. I could be wrong. Someone can correct me. I believe there are 2 visitors locker rooms because these home locker rooms are on opposite sides of the stadium. So you need, for different home games, whatever. So it's a road game for the Jets, although obviously at MetLife. But the Giants are the home team. They are laying 2.5 points. Have you seen the Zach Wilson discourse lately?
No. There's Zach Wilson discourse ahead of this game?
It's from the New York market. I saw a tweet about this, so I haven't read anything. So that's my bad, but I had a busy Friday, so sorry. But one of the WFAN hosts, I believe, was upset that Zach Wilson spent the bye week on vacationing or going home or whatever to Utah with his significant other, as opposed to preparing for the upcoming stretch of games. So Zach Wilson's taking heat from the local market. It's really
every NFL player goes now for the bye week.
There was a lot of people coming to his defense, obviously. Or actually, I should say there were only people coming to his defense. There was nobody that was like, oh, wow, yeah, this is a good take or whatever. On the other side of things, Stephen, Daniel Jones was ruled out about 15 minutes ago for you and I in real time. Not that that's surprising, but just so you know, this is Tyrod Taylor. That might affect the line, but right when we listed it, it was Giants. It's 2.5-point dogs.
I'm zapping myself. Jets win. Their defense is going to be a problem for the Giants.
So that was Brandon's zap, just to be clear. I'm with you. I made the joke to Brandon somewhere. I think it was last week on the show. I really hope that the Jet Life thing isn't said, even though Aaron Rodgers isn't playing, just because, how long has this building been in existence? I really wonder if Aaron Rodgers thought it was creative when he came up with Jet Life. It's dude, that's been said before. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. So, yeah, I'll take the Jets. The Los Angeles Rams, Stephen, are visiting the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys' first game at noon this season, which, as you know, is a great treat for me. Cowboys laying 6 points at home. It's their first game at home in a long time, since before that 49ers debacle, just because of back-to-back road games and the bye. DeMarcus Ware is getting enshrined in the Ring of Honor at halftime, if you're curious. But the Rams coming off of ruining our same-game parlay last week. So what do you like?
It feels like the Rams are better, or at least everybody would make you believe the Rams are better than they actually are. They're a 3-4 team right now. And I think it's because Matthew Stafford's having this big bounce back year where he looks really, really good. Puka Nacua is one of the coolest storylines in the NFL, and he's been an absolute baller. And now they've got Cooper Kupp back. And they're just generally like a fun team to watch. I've really enjoyed the Rams. I also have Puka Nacua in multiple fantasy leagues, so I'm really rooting for him. But I think at the end of the day, Dallas, despite their struggles, like their defense is just going to be too big of a problem for the Rams. Even losing Trayvon Diggs is obviously a huge blow to the secondary, but the Cowboys secondary has still been pretty good. Like Stephon Gilmore still been really good. Duran Bland has been really good. Like I think there's reason to assume that the Cowboys are just a better team, and the Rams offensive line hasn't been particularly good. I think that's the biggest thing holding the Rams back right now from being a more competitive team and kind of reflecting their record, reflecting what we see on field every week. So I just think that the Cowboys pass rush, and they're coming off a bye, they're well rested. Like I just think they're going to be all over the Rams. So I'll take the Cowboys and the points.
Mike McCarthy, generally a pretty successful coach coming off the bye, not Andy Reid, but someone who you can trust. This is an interesting spot for the Cowboys. This is, I wouldn't say it's a show us who you are game, but this is a show us you're not who we think you are game. You know what I mean? Don't come out and be flat. Don't come out and not get it done on offense. Get a nice, solid, methodical win. The Cowboys visit Philadelphia next week, so don't get caught looking ahead the way you were with San Francisco, blah, blah, blah. This should be easy. 6 points is a little bit more than I feel comfortable laying. I think I'm going to take the Rams to cover. I'm take the Cowboys to win, but Rams to cover. So I'm kind of emotionally hedging there, just because, and maybe it's like a backdoor cover, but Puka Nacua is so difficult to slow down. Nobody's been able to do it. So yeah, those are my thoughts. The Jacksonville Jaguars, Stephen, coming off of their Thursday Night Football win last week, are headed to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. This is the last game for the Jaguars before the bye. They are laying 2.5 points, not at Heinz Field. I forgot what it's called now. But it will always be Heinz Field.
Is it Acrisure? Is it?
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah. What do people like disrespect more by not saying Acrisure or GHA Field?
I feel like I guess it's Acrisure.
I mean, yeah, but what the funny part about that is like people just say Arrowhead, and that's just a cool, like the name, like a cool name that people like. Heinz gets like free publicity, you know what I mean? For people like calling it Heinz Field. So whatever. But either way, I like the Jaguars in this game. I can't see how anyone could like the Steelers, even though they won last week. Just it's gross, dude. Like I'm really sad that they are not taking off the way we all thought that they would. I mean, and maybe they'll finish above 500. Like I'm not ready to write off that prospect, but they're not dependable in any way, shape, or form offensively.
Yeah, and this is actually my lock of the week. I think Jacksonville's playing really well right now, and their defense probably isn't getting enough credit for how well it's playing. Like their pass rush is finally coming on, and Josh Allen's been really good this season. And I think the offense is starting to figure some things out. I know Calvin Ridley's been a little bit of a letdown, but this is actually a great matchup for Calvin Ridley to bounce back. It's a great matchup for Christian Kirk. Like, I just think that Trevor's going to have a big day here, and I'm with you on the Steelers. I am not buying into that 4-2 record whatsoever. Their offense still looks terrible on a weekly basis. Like, I know George Pickens has had some nice games, and Kenny Pickett has looked a little bit more functional, but at the end of the day, you cannot rely on them to score points. Like, you cannot rely on them offensively in any way. And defensively, TJ Watt's playing out of his mind right now, but the Steelers secondary has not been good this season. So I just think that Trevor's going to have a big day, and I think that Jacksonville easily covers that 2.5 points. I feel like the line should be higher, honestly.
I'm getting ready to like be more in on the Jaguars. Like, it took me a little bit longer than most to come around on the Lions. I'm kind of there. You get this win, all of a sudden you're really cooking with gas, and then out of the bye, they get the Niners. See, I mean, getting the bye to prep for the Niners, and obviously the status of San Francisco is interesting in and of itself. But I mean, like, would you be shocked if they won this game and they went on bye and came back and beat the Niners in Duval?
No, not at all. I think Doug Peterson is that good of a coach, and I think that Jacksonville is playing that well right now.
I think that we oftentimes do not revisit sliding door moment. I've never understood that expression, by the way. Like, I know what it means, but like, I don't understand where the expression comes from. Like, I understand butterfly effect, but I don't understand sliding doors and how that translates into what the expression means. But neither here nor there. But it was a win, a meaningless win in 2020 against the LA Rams that costed the Jets Trevor Lawrence. We don't talk about that. You know what I mean? Like think about like the way we just spoke about the Jaguars. Like that could have been the Jets. You know what I mean? If not for like, do you think they're happy 3 years later that they beat the Rams in that silly little game?
No, I think that most Jets fans would probably never bring that up again. They'd never talk about it whatsoever.
But like that's a like landmark moment in NFL history. But like that moment saved the Jaguars. That win, by the way,
Trevor with Garrett Wilson and that defense.
that was their first win of the season, and then they won a second game the week later. They beat the Rams 23-20. Why? Was it worth it? Like, what was it? Was it? No, it wasn't worth it. That's so stupid. Anyway, let's move on. Speaking of beating the Niners, that's what the Minnesota Vikings did on Monday Night Football. They will be visiting the Green Bay Packers, Stephen, on Sunday. Minnesota laying 1.5 points at Lambeau Field. You just locked up your game. By the way, you didn't tell us your lock before the show started, so that was a bit of a surprise to me. So that was kind of cool. But
I did. I said it yesterday in the chat.
Oh, okay, my bad. I didn't go back that far when I was filling out the doc. Anyway, I am locking up the Minnesota Vikings. I'm back. Like I know that I had a moment of disappointment with the Vikings, and I'm not like all the way back, but Monday night was such a like night of validation for me. You know what I mean? For somebody who's believed in the Vikings, who's believed in Kirk Cousins specifically. Did you see anybody like hyping up his performance in primetime? I know people were like, oh, it was a cool game from Kirk. If he had lost that game, even against the mighty 49ers, he would have gotten roasted. He would have gotten destroyed. Yeah. And so while I am back on the Vikings a little bit, this really has more to do with the Packers. Like they're so bad too. Like Jordan Love, I mean, this is, nobody feels bad for them the way nobody feels bad for the Patriots, because it's like, oh, wait a minute, Green Bay, you don't have a Hall of Fame quarterback? Wow. Wonder, this is how the other half lives. The Vikings are just a way more talented team and a way better offense, even without Justin Jefferson right now. Jordan Addison, by the way, also a contender for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. I was hyping up Kirk on my couch while I was watching that football game. Jordan Addison, that touchdown pass just before the half against San Francisco, just yanking that ball away from Trevor Ward after he had gotten a pick that way earlier in the game was amazing. Just incredible football play. No, I'm kind of with you. I'm in on the Vikings, and I understand Justin Jefferson's not there right now, but they're still functional enough offensively that I think you can feel confident in that performance that they just put on paper against the 49ers and going against this Packers team, which their defense hasn't been particularly great this season. Like their pass rush has been pretty good. Secondary's been a little bit up and down. Darnell Savage, I think, just went to IR this week. So that's an injury that could impact their secondary a little bit. And the Vikings just had a brutal schedule to start the season. Like it's starting to open up. And once they get Justin Jefferson back in the mix, like this is the part of the schedule where they got to win games. They can't be playing around anymore. And coming off the huge win, I think this is a Vikings win. I think they cover here. I'd expect another big opportunity for Jordan Addison to look good. And the Vikings defense, after starting the season really rough and looking exactly like the awful defense from last season, has actually kind of turned things around and looked pretty good the last few weeks. So I think this is going to be a tough game for the Packers and another tough showing for Jordan Love, who showed a little bit of promise early in the season, and since then has been kind of brutal to watch.
Oh, dude. I mean, nothing about Jordan Love is enjoyable whatsoever. And if Brian Flores can stymie Kyle Shanahan and, Brock Purdy, I mean, what can he do to Jordan Love? And like to your point, like Brian Flores deserves a lot of credit for the, I wouldn't even say mid-season, but like early season turnaround. You're right. It's cool. It was tough scene, against some of the better offenses in the NFL, but they've really stabilized. And to your point, so we both have them getting to 500 this week. That would be 4-4, obviously, at this point. After this, they have where is it here? They have 4 games remaining before the bye. So you tell me Vikings win or loss at Atlanta.
Win.
New Orleans.
Win.
At Denver on Sunday Night Football.
Easy win.
And then Chicago on Monday Night Football.
I think that's a win too.
I'm saying they lose 1 though. You know what I mean? Like just to be conservative. Yeah. Like they get to the bye at what 7-5. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like that you take that all day long, given the start they had. I mean, it was rough, and they almost beat the Chargers. Like I know that's who they are, but like it's fair. Like they're a playoff team. I'm very, very firm in that. I picked them to win the NFC North. I don't know that that's gonna pan out, but I mean, some of that rests on the hands of the Lions, but we'll see. Speaking of things that aren't getting properly hyped or credited, I feel like normally, and I know it doesn't happen all the time, but when the first and second overall picks face off as rookies, it is like a big deal. But I haven't seen any like kind of graphic or anything anywhere on TV or social media about CJ Stroud's Texans visiting Bryce Young's Panthers. Maybe that's because the Panthers stink. But the Texans are laying 3.5 points in Charlotte this weekend, Stephen.
I think part of it is because it's the Texans and Panthers. Like I think there's probably like CJ Stroud's been getting a lot of hype because he's obviously been awesome, and D'Amico Ryan's doing an incredible job. But I feel like those are two teams that just don't get talked about that much in general. But it's also coming off of a bye too, and like some of the steam, you lose some of the steam when you go into a bye, and then you come back because the NFL is always based off like what you did for me, right? Like
5 seconds ago. Yeah.
Earliest thing I can remember. So the Panthers are bad. They're really bad.
They're the only winless team in the NFL. Yeah.
They're going to be in play for the number 1 overall pick. It hasn't been great for Bryce Young. I think some of the criticism of him is unfair, just based on what the Panthers have put around him this season and kind of what they're giving him. Like there was the report that they're in the market for a number 1 wide receiver. And it's like you had DJ Moore and you traded him, and also you don't have a win. Like, why would you be in the market for a number 1 wide receiver? You should be. And I guess it's like, yeah, we want to be competitive and we don't want to have the number 1 overall pick because it's not our pick because of the trade that we made for Bryce Young. But it's just not good for the Panthers right now. And defensively, they were kind of showing a little bit of pop early in the season, but their defense has kind of fallen apart due to injuries. They can't get after the passer, and Houston coming off of a bye, they're well rested. I think Tank Dell's going to be back after missing a game prior to their bye week, and Nico Collins has been a baller. We should be talking about the Texans a lot more than we are, and I think some of that is coming off of a bye because you didn't have to think about them last week, but they've been tremendous this season, and D'Amico Ryans is doing an incredible job. CJ Stroud's been amazing. I think the Texans win pretty easily here.
So the Texans are 3-3 at the moment. I don't know the last time. I'm trying to look it up right now, but that they were above 500. Certainly this late in the season. It's
probably like 2019.
I'm looking. If you can buy me a second, I'm trying to find it. They were 4-3 on October 20th. I'm sorry, they were 4-2. That was or 3-2, I guess would be the earliest point. On October 6th, 2019, they beat the Falcons to get to 3-2. And then, they ultimately wound up as a playoff team that year in 2019. So it's been a minute. I mean, basically, and that was the 24-6 lead that they blew, obviously, in the divisional round. But it was 24-6, right? I'm misremembering the score.
Yeah, I think it was that.
Okay,
so it was in that ballpark, in that range.
Still, I mean, like the Texans, we all made fun of them with the Davis Mills game-winning touchdown last year. And Lovie Smith and, Bears fans were like all pumped about it. But like everything kind of worked out for them. Like they were due for some real good luck. Like they won the game. They got the good vibes. They got the better quarterback. They still made the trade. And like, do you think they're concerned that their first round draft pick next year belongs to the Cardinals? No. I think they could be a playoff team. Like are the Texans.
Will Anderson's been incredible.
Yeah. Season. But even then, even if he weren't, they're having enough team success to where they're not worried about that the way the Panthers are, like you said, and their pick belonging to Chicago. But are the Texans a playoff team? Are they a wild card team?
I don't think I'm there with them yet, but they're interesting. It would be fun if they got there.
I think they will. But either way, I think we're both willing to take Houston here. I didn't want to lock them up because I've given the Texans a lot of love and I kind of wanted to spread it. So I went back to the Vikings where, those are my 2 teams. But 3.5 feels really generous. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, and the Panthers' run defense also one of the worst in football. So it should be a big bounce back game for Dameon Pierce.
The New Orleans Saints are visiting the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday, Stephen. The Colts played pretty well last week, obviously. Certainly you can make an argument that they should have beat the Browns. I know that Jim Irsay did do that. I think we should debut something. We'll have to get Brandon's. We don't have to get a seal of approval. But so a new thing here on TGIFootball, the most disrespectful line. And I don't mean necessarily disrespectful in that how dare you do this? But like, I just think it's just a state of who the Saints are. How are they only 1-point favorites in this game? Like, this is really sad about who the Saints are to me. Like, that they're only 1-point favorite. I know they're on the road, but like, we both thought they'd win like 12 games this year. I mean, they have been such a disappointment.
Yeah, I think it's more disrespectful to the performance that the Colts put out there last week.
Wow.
That
Okay,
New
so
Orleans is
I like the
favored on the road.
tentacles to the disrespect. Okay, keep going.
Because I mean, what the Colts did last week offensively against the Browns is ridiculous, and it's like, I don't know what the hell that was. I don't really know how to explain all of that, because Cleveland's defense had been just dominating absolutely everyone that they had played this season. And then they get Gardner Minshew and the Colts. they drop like 35 plus points. I'm going to take the Colts here. After last week's brutal loss to the Browns, where they put up all those points and it just kind of slipped away at the end. I don't buy into the Saints at all right now. Derek Carr has been awful. Like, I understand he suffered the shoulder injury, so maybe that's impacting things, but like, they're not pushing the ball down the field. And I know he had a late touchdown drive last week where he hit Michael Thomas. And that was nice drive, whatever, at the end of the game. But everything is a check down to Alvin Kamara right now for them offensively. Like, Alvin Kamara is just getting 14 targets a game and like 11 catches for 34 yards because everything's around the line of scrimmage, because it seems like Derek Carr's afraid to take a hit. It feels like he's afraid to get that shoulder more injured, and he's afraid to push the ball down the field. He hasn't been an accurate passer this season. Like, it's just the Saints, like we talked about the Bucks, and maybe this is just a product of that division or something, where it's so bad that they're like, we can be competitive still. We can make a run. And so they continue to convince themselves that they've got the pieces in place to do this every year. But the Saints keep just retread, run it back. We have no money. We have no resources, and they're not going anywhere. And it's frustrating to watch for a team that's got some young, talented players. Like, you'd like to see them make some investment in the future and not waste a player like Chris Olave, who has been tremendous in his second year, when Derek Carr can actually hit him down the field, but that's been really inconsistent. So I like the way the Colts are playing right now. I think the Colts defense has been playing a lot better than how they started the year, and that's kind of flying under the radar here. So I'm going to take the Colts. I'm buying into Gardner Minshew and what they did last week against the Browns.
So I'm looking at my picks that I've made so far for the week everywhere, and I am with you. I couldn't remember because I can kind of talk myself into things one way or the other. But it's just a lack of belief in the Saints for me. Like, I mean, I'm not so much believing in Gardner Minshew as much as I'm believing in Shane Steichen. I think that
That's
has
probably what I should have said.
Yeah, I mean, like, because it took a little while, and they had to still kind of purge themselves of their like Colts mess, like with the early Jonathan Taylor stuff, and they played that well ultimately, but it just lent to the meme of it all. They're becoming functional, and I'm willing to give them a benefit of the doubt versus the Saints, who I'm not willing to give anything right now. And it's a bummer. Like, I would love for the Saints to be interesting, but they're just not. And I also think that the NFC South as a whole is just, it's not even disappointing. It's gross. And what's more is, like, I think they're all going to play themselves out of, I mean, obviously the Panthers are out of this, but like, they're going to play themselves out of the Caleb Williams sweepstakes or the Drake May. Like, if Caleb Williams and or Drake May, if one of them is not in the NFC South, it's a collective failure for football. You know what I mean? Like, that would be so unfortunate if we went the whole year in this. Like, who are the quarterbacks going to be in this division next year? Is Kirk Cousins going to be in this division? You know what I mean? Like, it's just really sad and gross and pathetic, and bums me out. There was a time where this division rocked in terms of quarterbacks. Drew Brees still getting it done. Matt Ryan in his peak, in his prime. Cam Newton in his prime. And when Jameis Winston, goodness gracious, was at least putting up numbers. Like, it was fun and interesting. I mean, this is the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, the Saints are really frustrating. I just don't understand what they're trying to accomplish. Like, okay, I guess it's fun to just be kind of a competitive middle of the pack team that's going nowhere in the NFL. Like, that's their game plan every year, basically.
Let's move on. The Atlanta Falcons are visiting the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are 2.5-point home underdogs. Steven, I'm going to zap you just because this game is gross. Like, it has nothing to do with you. It's just,
I appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm going to pick the Titans because I don't like Arthur Smith.
He's really rubbing people the wrong way. I know that I zapped you, but he's really upsetting people with his like terse, short responses. The Bijan thing certainly didn't help. I wouldn't be shocked if we get like an overload of Bijan this week. Like if there's some like overcorrection. I think I'm gonna take the Titans, and I think
I did
don't know.
forget that Ryan Tannehill's out this week before I said that.
Well, I know, but I'm gonna take the Titans because what I was gonna say is like this is the like Derrick Henry showcase. You know what I mean? Like if somebody really does want to trade for him, they're gonna give him the ball like 30 times. You know what I mean? And like they're gonna have to obviously because this is the Will Levis debut. But I'll take the. I just don't feel good at this. I mean, that's why I zapped you. We've already talked about this more than I wanted to. The Cleveland Browns, Stephen, are visiting the Seattle Seahawks this week. It appears I don't think Deshaun has been officially ruled out, or has he? I can't. This is such a mess of a story.
I don't remember if he's been officially ruled.
Actually, he was. He was
doubtful.
He was ruled out on Thursday. Now that I think about it, but that's what this has been. Like, will he play? Won't he play? Is he hurt? Is he not hurt? Like, there's all this discourse surrounding him. The line certainly lends towards him not playing against Seattle, favored by 3.5, even though they're at home. And I don't know. I don't know a Browns fan personally. I feel like you said at one point in time that you were a Browns fan. Am I making that up? Am I Mandela affecting this?
I was at one point for a couple of years there. I was.
Yeah.
I am no longer a Browns fan. I do not root for them in any way.
So I don't know how like Browns fans are reconciling this because there's obviously a lot of Browns fans who have not been comfortable with Deshaun Watson for very understandable and rightful reasons. But so that the team is finding ways to win without him is, I guess, inspiring. If you want to look at it through that lens or through that prism. So maybe that has like, I do feel like some people who have said they didn't want to root for the Browns are at least thinking about it now. I just don't know. Like I have no real take on the Browns as a football team, man. I have no idea what to really make of them other than that their defense is amazing, but they did just surrender 30 points to the Colts, so we just talked about.
Well, and the whole they're winning games without him thing. Well, I mean, he was part of the reason that they were losing games.
Right.
Like he was not good. He was not playing good football. And the shoulder injury, I do think is affecting him. Like the interception that he threw last week, like it that just looks like a duck. Like it didn't have any velocity on it. So I do think there is something to the shoulder injury, but even before the injury, he wasn't playing well. And the defense has been playing lights out all season. And if they got any type of consistent quarterback play, that defense would win them football games if they could just get an above average quarterback. I don't think Deshaun Watson's been an above average quarterback this season. And we certainly know that PJ Walker's not that, but the defense is good enough to win you football games as we've seen them do so far this season. Now, this week against Seattle, I think the Seahawks are a team that I'm still kind of trying to figure out, like exactly what they are. They signed Frank Clark this week because Nnachena Nwosu went to IR. He's going to be out for a while. But their defense is a lot better than I think I initially planned. Devon Witherspoon, obviously, just playing like he's the defensive rookie of the year. Like he's been absolutely outstanding. And I think Seattle is a good team. I'm curious what they're going to be able to do against this Browns defense. I think ultimately Seattle's defense is playing well enough that offensively the Browns probably aren't going to be able to get much going. So I think I'll take Seattle here. But I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about the Seahawks. Like I feel like they don't really have like a dominant win that I'm really looking for, aside from like, they dominated the Panthers, who are the worst team in football.
And the Giants. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Who are also not good.
Right. And even then, like it felt like they should have dominated the Giants more. You know what I mean? Like, and so I'm with. I want the Seahawks. I think we're trying to manifest this. I want them to be good. I want them to be great. But it's just there hasn't been enough for us to like really sink our teeth into. So I'm with you. I'm going to take the Seahawks, but this is by far the pick I'm the least comfortable with. Like if I didn't have to pick this game, I wouldn't. Like if you do a pool, you have to pick like 10 games or something like that. Like I just wouldn't touch this one. I did want to squeeze this in because I love stuff like this. We are recording and streaming, I guess, on Friday, October 27th. Are you, I guess maybe if any person who creates football content is aware, it's probably you, but are you aware that Taylor Swift re-released her 1989 album today?
I did know that. I have not listened to it. I don't really know what that is all about. But I am aware that that's a thing that people are excited about today.
It has to do with her like establishing like the rights to her like she didn't own the rights before, so now she
Yeah.
owns the rights to the re-records, whatever. That's the TLDR. But I love stuff like this. I do it all the time in as it relates to the Cowboys. But so shout out to Ashley. I'm assuming it's Bastock, Bastock. Is that how you would pronounce it? It might be Bustock, but how would you pronounce it?
Bastock, I think.
Yeah, okay. Ashley Bastock, who covers the Browns for Cleveland.com. She tweeted this out. I saw this. The Browns are 5-7 in games following a Taylor Swift album release, which includes the re-records. They haven't won following an album release since 2014 when they beat the Buccaneers 22-17. The album that win followed the release of was 1989, which is the album that is re-releasing. So, yeah.
That's a deep dive. Okay, maybe I need to rethink how I feel about this game then.
Speaking of Taylor Swift, the Kansas City Chiefs, what a segue that offered, are visiting the Denver Broncos this week. This game just happened. I hate when that happens, but whatever. The Chiefs are only 7-point favorites, even though it's at Mile High, Acrisure, whatever, GEHA Field. I don't even know what Denver's stadium is called at this point anymore. Dude, the Broncos are like who in their right mind would like feel comfortable betting on the Broncos right now against the Chiefs of all teams?
Yeah. This has been a tough game to cover this week because you can tell everybody's analysis is just like, we don't just listen to what we talked about 2 weeks ago because we don't care about this football game at all. It would take just absolutely catastrophic levels of performance from the Chiefs to lose this football game. Like, that's how bad the Broncos are. And, maybe there is something to the idea that it's trade deadline next week and Denver is supposedly trying to sell off players. And so maybe they want to showcase some guys. Maybe Sean Payton's upset about their performance a couple of weeks ago against the Chiefs. I don't think that even if Sean Payton cared about that, which I don't think he really does, I don't think any of his players care about it. And I don't think he really gets the most out of that roster right now because it seems like he is just looking towards next year and not really focused on this season. So I think it would take like a Chiefs Colts last season kind of performance to lose this football game. But even in that particular instance, like, the Chiefs defense has been so good this season that they can play bad offensively in this game and look uninterested like they do at times, and the defense will still do enough for them to win this game. I just don't see any possibility or like outcome where the Broncos somehow pull off this huge upset ahead of the Chiefs' massive matchup against the Miami Dolphins next week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you. Obviously, the Chiefs have won, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 games in a row.
And Patrick Mahomes has an opportunity to go 13-0 against the Broncos this week, which would be an NFL record for a single player starting his career with that many wins and no losses against a single team.
That's what's amazing about this is this predates Mahomes. The win streak began
actually Alex Smith.
Right.
As soon as Peyton fell off a cliff.
You're right. The first win of this streak was November 15th, 2015, which was the Peyton Brock. Although the Broncos did win the Super Bowl that year, to be fair. But are you aware of the last Kansas City loss in Denver, Stephen? Are you aware of when that was?
I don't remember the date, but I believe Jamal Charles fumbled the ball and it was returned for a touchdown.
The Broncos scored that day, not defensively. The Broncos won in Denver against the Chiefs, week 2 of the 2014 season.
Okay.
That was
I think
Sports
maybe
Authority
it was
Field.
It was a Jamal Charles fumble like late in the game or something. Was it a one-score game?
It was 24-17. The Broncos touchdowns were Julius Thomas touchdown pass from Peyton Manning, a Jacob Tamme touchdown pass from Peyton Manning, and a Demaryius Thomas touchdown pass. The Chiefs had 2 touchdowns. They both belonged to the same player. It was not Jamal Charles. Can you guess who it was? I would be really impressed. I had forgotten that this name existed until I just looked at this.
Jeremy Maclin. I don't even know.
Niall Davis.
Oh, yeah, that's weird. That's
Yeah.
weird.
I really have enjoyed the Chiefs Broncos rivalry, even though it hasn't been one. What was that's my last question on this. I'm taking the Chiefs, by the way. Was it 2013 when they were both undefeated and the Chiefs beat them? It was like a 9-0, 10-0 matchup or whatever it was on Sunday Night Football.
I don't remember. That
Well,
sounds right.
now I have to know. I mean, buy me a second.
That
You
was
can do
that
this.
was a decade ago now. I've been lost in Patrick Mahomes for a long time now. I don't remember that part.
Um, I was close. In 2013, they met on November 17th, and the Broncos won to hand the Chiefs their first loss. The Broncos were 8-1, and the Chiefs were 9-0. So they both
Oh,
left that
wasn't
game
that
9-1.
was that Alex Smith's first season?
That was 2013. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. Okay, it's coming back to me now.
he threw a touchdown to Dwayne Bowe. That was the first Chiefs touchdown of the game. He threw one to Anthony Fasano later in the game. So look at that. Monte Ball scored twice for the Broncos in that game. So that concludes football deep dive history here on TGI Football. Okay, the game that is our same game parlay, Stephen. The Baltimore Ravens visiting the Arizona Cardinals. We talked about all the offensive things we liked for the Ravens. They're laying 9.5 points. I imagine that's not enough to spook you, given what we said.
No, I think, and maybe like I understand the logic of like maybe don't chase the points based off of their performance against the Lions last week. I think some of that game, obviously Lamar was just absolutely dialed in and just absolutely shredded them and did absolutely everything that he wanted to do all day against that. And I think some of it was the Lions getting in their heads a little bit. They're still a young team. Jared Goff is still Jared Goff sometimes when he has to go on the road. And it was just a rough performance by them. But the Ravens, I think their defense is playing lights out right now. Lamar's playing really well, and they're not getting as much hype as teams atop the NFL, like the 49ers, like the Eagles, like the Chiefs. And I think they should be right in that conversation. So I don't expect a letdown this week from the Ravens. I think Lamar's just playing too well right now. I think their defense has been fantastic, and I just don't have any faith in the Cardinals. And the Cardinals have no running game. Like they might be trying to trade people. I know Josh Dobbs has been okay, but they're just not a good football team.
Yeah, I do think they're not good, and the like fun vibe from the early part of the season has faded. You know what I mean? Now they're just boring and sad and whatever. And people are like more concerned that the Diamondbacks are in the World Series than that the Cardinals exist.
They should be.
So, yeah. So I'll take the Ravens too. Good for us. Wasn't even keeping tabs of how many ice boxes we have, but I guess we don't have Brandon's picks, so we don't know. This is a weird game, Steven. The Cincinnati Bengals are visiting the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco has lost 2 games in a row for the first time ever. They are 4-point favorites at home, but it's unknown or unlikely whether or not Brock Purdy is going to play. It was reported on Wednesday that he was dealing with a concussion, or that he was in concussion protocol after the Monday night loss. It's hard to know what to make of the Niners. Meanwhile, the Bengals are coming off of their bye and seem to have found their footing.
So I think Purdy practiced in some capacity on Thursday, like was at least limited,
Yeah,
but
he was limited.
I think with they've been a little bit more locked down on the concussion stuff this season after the Tua issues last year. And so I think this would probably have to be like the quickest concussion turnaround so far this season if Brock Purdy manages to be ready for this game. So I'm assuming Sam Darnold is going to be the quarterback for the 49ers. And I'm not really worried about the 49ers. Like, I'm not worried about San Francisco. I feel like San Francisco does this every single year where they go on these stretches where they stack up some injuries. And I don't know if Trent Williams is going to be available in this game or not. I think he's the biggest loss. Like, I think the biggest guy on that roster. Like, that's the one guy you really can't have go down. And he's banged up right now. But I feel like the 49ers go on this stretch every year where they lose games they have no business losing. And then they'll get healthier down the stretch. They'll rattle off like 7 wins in a row, and everybody will be very confident in the 49ers going into the playoffs. So Sam Darnold, sure, red flag. I understand that. And I think this line should probably be a little bit closer. But I'm still not super confident in the Bengals. I know they put some wins together and Burrow has looked a little bit better, but they still haven't been like a dominant offensive team. And I think what we're seeing with Cincinnati is that, like, if you take away the deep ball, if you take away the big explosive plays, and I know T. Higgins has been hurt for their offense, then they get pretty one dimensional and they can't really run the football. So I think this is still going to be a competitive game. And I kind of want to pick the 49ers to win, even with Sam Darnold.
This has been a weird story all week. And I get that some of it is like the attention associated with the Niners and coming off the loss and the second loss. And you're right. Like, I think everyone's like willingness to give them the benefit that they'll survive because that's what they do. I just would be stunned if he would play. I was looking this up. This was the initial report from Adam Schefter, like literally seconds after Kyle Shanahan said that Brock Purdy was in concussion protocol. So I'm just reading this word for word. Brock Purdy is now unlikely to play Sunday versus the Bengals based on this trend. No NFL player placed in the concussion protocol this season has played the same week. The last player to be in concussion protocol who played the same week was Kenny Pickett in 2022, who had a concussion in week 6 and was cleared to play in week 7. Again, that just felt like really, specific. You know what I mean? Like to come out like immediately and offer that. And almost intentional. Like I'm not getting into like Schefter conspiracy theories, but like that's why like I'm really doubting that Brock Purdy's going to play. And if he's not healthy, he shouldn't play. You know what I mean? Like he should take care of himself. But like the Sam Darnold, like I think the Niners and Kyle Shanahan have passed enough Rorschach tests. Is that how you pronounce that? Right?
I think Rorschach, right?
I think it's Worcestershire.
Isn't that's like a sauce?
Okay, so the test is or litmus test. How about that? But whatever. They've passed enough tests to where we kind of know that the offense is like quarterback proof. But this is the first time that we're gonna potentially get a look at that after they found like the permanent answer. And I'm saying like this is the first like Sam Darnold like and I don't know that anyone's gonna feel like they made a mistake trading away Trey Lance. They shouldn't. But this is a really interesting spot. I mean, it's against a Bengals team that I'm willing to trust the Bengals a little bit more. Like they've dug out of their hole a little bit. Maybe you're just a hater.
That could easily be the case too. But I also Sam Darnold has these stretches where he like looks like a competent quarterback, but it's always early in the season when teams don't have film on him. And then once teams have film on him and they can be like, oh, we see where his eyes go, first read every time or whatever. And then he starts to unravel. So I just feel like Sam Darnold coming fresh off the bench, I feel like he's got an opportunity to look better than he is in his first game of the season. So that's part of why I'm buying into it.
The Niners are on bye after this game. So if they lose and go in off of 3 straight losses, it will be a very long 2 weeks for Niners fans. And then they come out just to go to Duval that we talked about, or what we talked about to visit the Jaguars. So I'm a believer in the Bengals. So somebody would be in the icebox here. We obviously don't know the great mysteries of life. Sunday Night Football.
Fun fact about the icebox. Winter is coming.
I'm in the icebox. Who do you think it is?
Well, I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
Who would you guess BLG would pick and put one of us in the icebox on?
Oh, I think he would take the Bengals probably.
Yeah. So again, you're in the icebox associated with Joe Burrow, like the burr. Yeah. So I made this argument to BLG or this point to BLG or somebody this week. The Cowboys play at noon, first time this season. You know what that's like. You get it done, dust your hands off. Awesome. Get to enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Sit back, relax, watch Sunday Night Football. My treat this week, Steven, is the Bears visiting the Chargers. That's what I got. My first noon game of the year. The Chargers are 8.5-point favorites, despite losing to the Chiefs in embarrassing fashion last week, and the Cowboys the week before that. The Chargers are a disaster. I do think that we're starting to see the national media let go of their willingness or their manifestation of them just because it's not happening. I don't know if that's growing faster than Brandon Staley's beard or not, but it's that thing is impressive. Like I've never seen Brandon Staley rock that before, and he's prepared for the cooler months, although not exactly happening in Los Angeles. But dude, I don't know. I'm kind of willing to take the points at the very least. Like I might be there with it just says more about the Chargers to me. Like I have no idea what to expect in this game.
I think I am going to take the points. I think the Chargers win, but 8.5 feels like a lot. And I think It's 8.5 because it's Tyson Bagent. Like if Justin Fields was playing in this game, that line would be smaller. But like they didn't ask Badgett to do a lot last week. His average depth of target was really, really low. Like they were just keeping everything around the line of scrimmage, and Deontay Foreman went off and had a monster game. But it has more to do with the fact that the Chargers defense is really that bad. It's really been that bad this season. Their secondary is one of the worst secondaries in football. I don't think that the Bears are all of a sudden going to air it out or anything against the Chargers, but that's how you beat them. Like that's how you pull off this big upset on Sunday Night Football with the backup quarterback is you take some shots down the field or get DJ Moore into space and have him pick up a lot of yards after contact like he has all season. Like I was impressed that DJ Moore still had a bunch of targets last week, even though it didn't amount to that much because they were running the football so effectively. So I think the Bears are playing a lot better defensively as well, and just overall as a team. So they're pluckier than I think they're probably getting credit for right now. And the Chargers defense has just been that bad. But at the end of the day, Justin Herbert just needs a big game. Like he needs a huge performance after his letdown last week against the Chiefs, where they absolutely blanked him in the second half of that game. And if you're supposed to be in this Mahomes tier of quarterbacks, like you can't allow that to happen. So I think Herbert's in a big bounce back spot. I think he'll get it going. I think they'll win, but I certainly don't want to take the 8.5 points.
I heard Dan Haynes say on the Around the NFL podcast at some point this week that this is the game, like this is the scariest possible thing that Brandon Staley could be facing. Like you're right that Justin Herbert needs a big game, but like, man, Brandon Staley needs a win so bad. You know, like he really needs a win to like chill things out. Is his the hottest seat in the NFL right now? It has to be, right?
It should be. This is a team that has like contender expectations, and they don't look anything close to that.
Would it be the funniest primetime loss of the season if the Chargers lost this game?
Yeah, I mean, this is the type of loss where like people get fired and season's blown up, reset. Like,
I mean, the Chargers are currently 2-4. If they are you aware that this is the first of 2 straight games that they will be playing on primetime?
I did not realize that.
Next week they are back on Monday Night Football for the second time in a 4-week stretch, and they are visiting the New York Jets. So if the Jets do win and get above 500, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and you know, there's all these like the energy and vibes around the Jets will be, you know, I mean, you know what they'll be like. They'll be 4-3, whatever. And if the Chargers are 2-5, like, I mean, I'm really kind of rooting for this at this point.
It's just, and all the problems the Jets have given quarterbacks this year.
Oh my God.
It's like, yeah. It also like Brandon Staley, like he keeps getting asked about the playoff loss and the Jaguars coming back, and he's starting to get upset about it, which I do think it's unfair to keep asking him about that. Like how long as just media analysts, like how long are we going to continue to bring that up? But that's where it started. Like that's where it started to unravel, and it's carried over to this season. And they gotta reset. It's not gonna happen.
I'm certainly not above placing criticism at Brandon Staley's feet, and you're right, they have the status of a contender. And Justin Herbert's played well, although not well enough, certainly. But like, where's Joey Bosa? You know what I mean? Like this is
he's hurt and on a snap count right now.
But like that's part of the problem here. Like, you know what I mean? Like we can rightfully place criticism upon Brandon Staley, but like the players aren't living up to like
Austin Eckler hasn't been good either since returning from his ankle injury.
So we're both taking the points, I think. I'm really rooting for the Bears to win this game. Like it would be so funny. I really would. Like Twitter will be alive. Like if it's, I want to paint you a little picture, Steven. It's the fourth quarter. There are 2 minutes and 16 seconds left. The Bears have just scored a touchdown to take a 26-20 lead. And the Chargers have 2 timeouts and they're at the 25-yard line. Do they pull that off?
No, I feel like Justin Herbert throws an interception.
Oh my gosh, let's go. I really, really want this. Okay. Monday Night Football, the Las Vegas Raiders visiting the Detroit Lions. It does appear that Jimmy Garoppolo will be back. The Lions are 8-point favorites. One sentence, Steven.
Jared Goff is going to have a big bounce back game. Lions win.
Jahmyr Gibbs will have at least 3 total touchdowns because the Lions finally realized that he is good at scoring them. and the Lions will win and cover. Cool. Okay. What was the Cabin in the Woods related adjacent movie that you recommended at the beginning of all this?
Like I recommended something else besides Cabin in the Woods.
What was Seven? I brought up Seven.
The Killer. It's starring Michael Fassbender. It's a limited release Netflix movie, so it might be hard to find, but it's gotten really good reviews, and David Fincher's one of the greatest living directors. So
I have a question. What is a limited release Netflix movie? Is it on Netflix? Is it not on Netflix?
So they do this now with Netflix movies where they'll put them in theaters before they actually hit Netflix. And so it's in limited theaters this weekend and next weekend. And then I think it comes out on Netflix like the following weekend.
Wow. So you lamented over the 30-minute drive. You could just wait 2 weeks and not have to drive at all.
Yeah, but it's David Fincher. I want to go see it, so.
Okay. Well, cool. We hope you enjoy, Stephen. We hope everybody enjoys week 8. This is the week for the same game parlay, Stephen. Make us a promise. If it hits, you'll do something weird. Go.
I will eat a burrito on the show.
That sounds actually, I'll do it too. Burritos for everyone on the show if the same game parlay hits. Have a great week, everybody. Go Burritos.